In the dark heart of medieval Europe, there lived a man so ruthless, so cruel, so terrifying, that legends still whisper of his deeds. His name was Vlad the Impaler. His honorific name was Dracula. History remembers him as one of the most fearsome princes to ever live. Some call him a monster. Others call him a hero. But who was the real Vlad the Impaler? Let's find out. 1. Origins: a prince born in blood. Vlad the Impaler was born in 1431 in Sighisoara, Transylvania, a medieval town perched high in the Carpathian Mountains. His birth name was Vlad III. The name Dracula is actually an honorific given to him by his father. Vlad the Impaler's father was Vlad II Dracul, a nobleman and a member of the Order of the Dragon, a holy order of knighthood founded by the Polish king Casimir the Great in 1392. The order was dedicated to resisting the advance of the Ottoman Turks. Its members called themselves the Children of the Dragon, and its emblem was a white dragon on a red shield. The name Dracul means dragon in Romanian. It can also mean devil. Centuries later, Vlad the Impaler's descendants would take the family name, Dracula. That means son of the dragon. But it can also mean son of the devil. Vlad the Impaler's father, Vlad II, was called the dragon. So his son would have been called son of the dragon. Whether Vlad the Impaler was truly a descendant of the dragon or the spawn of the devil is up to you to decide. 2. The Ottoman captivity. When Vlad was just 11 years old, his father was summoned by the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire to serve as a hostage. The plan was that if Vlad's father negotiated a favorable treaty with the Sultan, then he and his eldest son, Vlad, would return home. But if Vlad's father refused to negotiate or signed an unfavorable treaty, he would be executed, and young Vlad would remain a captive in Constantinople. Well, Vlad's father, Vlad II, hated the Turks and refused to cooperate with them. So he and Vlad were thrown into prison. There they were held for 6 long years. While his father died of cold and starvation, Vlad impressed the Sultan's son, Mehmed, with his intelligence and bravery. In fact, when Mehmed came to power and became Sultan Mehmed the Conqueror, he ordered that Vlad be freed. However, Vlad had no intention of returning to Ottoman service. Instead, he escaped to Poland and then returned to Transylvania, where he entered the service of the Polish king, Casimir IV. Under Casimir, Vlad learned the skills of war and diplomacy and gained valuable experience that would help him later in life. 3. Rise to power. In 1456, Vlad returned to Wallachia to take his rightful place as prince. But Wallachia was in chaos. For decades, various feudal lords had fought for control of the principality, and its people suffered greatly under their constant warfare. Vlad promised to restore order and put an end to the bloodshed. He crushed rebellions and restored peace. But this came at a terrible price. To keep Wallachia safe from its enemies, Vlad needed to raise a large army and equip it with weapons and armor. He raised taxes to pay for it. But the nobles who had grown accustomed to taxing the peasants without doing any work resisted. So Vlad punished them brutally, which made them even more determined to get rid of him. Then the Ottoman Empire threatened to invade Wallachia unless Vlad paid them tribute. Faced with these threats, Vlad the Impaler decided to go to war. He gathered his forces and prepared to defend his homeland. Before going to war, he visited every village in his domain to rally his people to his cause. He encouraged the peasants to fight against the Ottoman Turks and promised them freedom from serfdom if they won. Thousands of farmers joined his army, along with many of the nobles who now regretted opposing him. Together, they marched out to meet the enemy. 4. The Impaler, terror as a weapon. Vlad the Impaler believed that terror was the best weapon to rule his people. He punished thieves, traitors, and enemies with brutal public executions. His favorite method was impalement. Victims were pierced with a wooden stake and left to die slowly, sometimes for days. Their bodies were displayed along roads and around his capital, Targovist, as a warning to other potential enemies. Vlad even hosted a feast for Saxon merchants accused of corruption. After they ate, he asked, "Do you want to sit or stand?" They said, "Sit," so he nailed their turbans to the ceiling, forcing them to stand. And then he killed them. To the poor and loyal, Vlad was a protector. To the rich, the corrupt, and the foreign invader, he was a nightmare. During his reign, he impaled over 20,000 people. And even his enemies admitted that he had done good things for his people. 5. War against the Ottomans. Despite his victories, Vlad knew that he could not defeat the Ottomans in open battle. So he used guerrilla tactics. When the Ottoman army advanced into Wallachia, they found 20,000 impaled corpses on stakes along the road. This caused the Ottoman soldiers' morale to drop so low that even the mighty conqueror of Constantinople was horrified. He said, "You may conquer his land, but you cannot conquer his people." Despite this, Vlad was outnumbered and forced to retreat. Soon after, he lost his throne to his brother. 6. Downfall and death. After losing power, Vlad fled to Hungary, seeking help from King Matthias Corvinus. But instead of getting help, he was imprisoned for 12 years on the false charge of being a threat to Hungary. Meanwhile, his brother, Radu the Handsome, supported by the Ottomans, ruled Wallachia. In 1476, after being released from prison, Vlad returned to Wallachia with the help of the Hungarians and briefly regained the throne. But his enemies struck back. In December of that year, during a night battle near Bucharest, Vlad Țepeș was killed. According to one version of events, he was struck in the neck by a Tatar axe while attempting to flee. Another version claims he fell in battle alongside many of his warriors, having fought bravely to the very end. His body was beheaded and his head sent to Constantinople as a trophy. His final resting place remains unknown. Some believe he was buried at Snagov Monastery on an island in Lake Snagov, 20 kilometers from the capital of his former state. Legends persist that his tomb is within the tower of the church or beneath the lake itself. 7. From prince to legend, the birth of Dracula. For centuries, Vlad was remembered in Eastern Europe as a brave defender of Christendom and a ruler who protected his land at any cost. But in 1897, Irish writer Bram Stoker read about Vlad and was inspired. He took the name of Dracula, mixed it with Vlad the Impaler's honorific name and created a fictional vampire count from Transylvania. Stoker's novel Dracula turned Vlad's legacy into a global myth, mixing history, horror, and fantasy. Today, Vlad Țepeș is remembered as a national hero in Romania, a symbol of resistance against invaders, and the real Dracula behind the vampire legend. Final legacy: was he a monster or a savior? Vlad Țepeș remains one of history's most controversial figures. He was cruel beyond measure, impaling thousands. But he ruled in a time of chaos, invasion, and betrayal. And he defended a small nation against one of the most powerful empires in history. Was he a tyrant? Yes. Was he a warrior king? Also yes. In the end, Vlad Țepeș was a man of his time, forged in war, shaped by suffering, and remembered in blood and legend. From the forests of Wallachia to the castles of Transylvania, his story lives on, not in shadows, but in history. You might ask, why do we tell his story today? Why does the legend of Vlad the Impaler matter to us? Because Vlad's story reminds us that monsters aren't always born of darkness. Sometimes they're born of necessity. Vlad was a product of his times, a warrior king living in a world of violence and chaos. But that doesn't make him any less frightening. Vlad was a man who embraced the darkness, who used terror as a weapon, who delighted in inflicting pain. Yet he was also a man of honor, a defender of his people, a champion of his faith. And that makes him all the more fascinating. Vlad was a complex character, a monster with a human side, a hero with a monstrous side. And that's what makes the story of Vlad the Impaler so compelling. It's a story that shows us that the line between good and evil isn't always clear, that sometimes the greatest heroes are also the greatest monsters, and that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are also the greatest heroes.